If you love intense stories about betrayal, revenge, and emotional twists, you're in the right place. I'm sharing real and raw stories that will keep you hooked until the very end. Don't miss out, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to be the first to hear every new story. Your support helps this new channel grow, and I promise, the drama is just getting started. Caught my wife fully naked cheating at a party. You always think you'll see it coming. That betrayal will come with warning signs, late nights, cold silences, a sudden distance. But I didn't. I was blind until the very moment my world shattered. It started with an invitation to a celebration. My friend had just earned a huge promotion and his wife was throwing a party. My own wife offered to help set things up. She loved these kinds of things, decorating, planning, making everything look perfect. So when she said she'd go ahead of me to help, I thought nothing of it. She even told me to come a little later, claiming she wanted me to make a grand entrance. I didn't question it. Maybe I should have. By the time I pulled up to their house, the place was already buzzing. Music spilled from the windows, laughter echoed in the air, and the scent of food drifted into the night. On the surface, it felt like any other celebration. But the moment I stepped inside, something felt off. I greeted a few people, forcing a smile, but my eyes were searching, subconsciously maybe. Looking for her. I thought I'd find her in the kitchen, laughing with friends, maybe arranging snacks or fixing drinks. But she wasn't there. She wasn't anywhere. I brushed it off, telling myself she was probably caught up somewhere in party details. Still, an uneasy feeling settled in my chest. That's when a woman I barely knew approached me. I recognized her face from previous gatherings, but we'd never exchanged more than a polite hello. There was something about her expression that caught me off guard. She looked hesitant, uneasy, as though debating whether or not to speak. Then she leaned in close and whispered, "You should check the guest room upstairs." That was it. Just one sentence. But it was enough to make my heart hammer in my chest. Her voice wasn't malicious, it wasn't gossip. It was concern. Warning. A lifeline I didn't know if I wanted to grab. I tried to push down the rising anxiety. Maybe my wife was helping with decorations or arranging something. Maybe it was nothing. I told myself I was overreacting. Still, I found myself walking toward the staircase. Each step felt heavier than the last. I could still hear the laughter and music from below, but it felt distant, like I was walking away from one reality and toward another. The hallway upstairs was dimly lit, the shadows stretching across the floor. I reached the guest room door, my hand hovering over the handle. For a brief second, I considered turning around, pretending I never heard that warning. But something inside me pushed forward. I opened the door, and that's when my world ended. She was there. Not setting up decorations. Not arranging anything. She was with another man, fully exposed, both of them caught in a moment that can never be undone. Time slowed. I remember the shock on their faces, the sudden scrambling, the desperate attempt to cover what was already too late to hide. My wife's eyes met mine. Wide. Panicked. Guilty. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I didn't speak either. What could I say? What words could possibly exist for a moment like that? I turned around and walked out, down the stairs. Past the laughter, past the people who had no idea that a life had just been shattered upstairs. Out into the cold night, the air hitting me like a slap. I didn't feel. I kept walking. Away from the party. Away from her. Away from the lie that had been my life, and no matter how far I went, I couldn't outrun the truth. I don't remember much about the drive home. One moment I was walking down the sidewalk, my mind spinning, and the next I was pulling into my driveway. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the house that was supposed to be my safe place, my sanctuary. But now it felt like just another lie. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind kept replaying the moment over and over like a cruel movie I couldn't turn off. Her face. His face. The panic. The shame. The betrayal. It was burned into me now. A memory that would never fade. I should have been angry. I should have felt rage, fury, something explosive. But I didn't. I felt nothing. Empty. Like my heart had just stopped beating. Like my soul had been ripped out and all that was left was this hollow shell. I don't know how long I sat there, in the car, staring at the house. My house. Our house. I had built a life with her inside those walls. Every picture, every piece of furniture, every memory felt tainted now. Contaminated by what I had seen. When I finally stepped out, the night air hit me, but it wasn't cold enough to numb the ache inside me. I unlocked the front door and stepped in. The familiar scent of home greeted me, but it didn't bring comfort. The soft smell of vanilla candles. The fresh linen from the morning's laundry. It used to feel warm, inviting. Now it made my chest tighten. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter and stood there, staring at nothing, listening to the silence pressing in on me. It was suffocating. I wanted to scream, to break something, to do anything just to release the storm inside me. But I couldn't. I couldn't even move. I walked to the living room and sat down on the couch. Not because I was tired, but because I didn't know what else to do. I stared at the walls, at the pictures of us. Smiling. Happy. Lies. All of it. Lies. My eyes drifted to my wedding ring, glinting under the soft light. I twisted it slowly around my finger, remembering the day I put it on. Remembering the promises that came with it. Forever. Always. Faithfulness. Love. It meant nothing now. Just metal and broken words. The hours passed in a blur. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't touch my phone. I didn't move. I just sat there, thinking, breaking apart inside. And when exhaustion finally dragged me down, I let it. Sleep was the only escape left. I don't know how long I slept, but the sound of the front door unlocking snapped me awake. My pulse jumped. I sat still, listening as quiet footsteps crept into the house. She was home. The betrayer. My wife. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just sat there, staring at the shadows on the ceiling. The footsteps paused, lingering at the doorway like she wasn't sure if she should come in. I could hear her breathing shaky, uneven. She stepped in. I could feel her presence even though I hadn't looked at her. She stood there, waiting, her hesitation almost louder than words. But I didn't acknowledge her. I couldn't. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was low, barely above a whisper. "We need to talk." The words stung, sharp and useless. Now she wanted to talk. Now, after it was already too late. After she had already destroyed everything. I stood, not looking at her, and walked past her without a word. Her breath caught as I disappeared into the bedroom. I shut the door behind me, the soft click sounding louder than a slam. I stood there, leaning against the door, my eyes closed. I didn't want to hear her. I didn't want to hear her excuses or her lies. I just wanted to block out the world, block out the pain. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The silence pressed down on me like a weight. I waited for tears that didn't come. Only numbness. Only emptiness. I listened as she moved through the house, her steps hesitant. She paused in the kitchen, then walked down the hall, finally stopping in the guest room. I heard the door close. She wasn't sleeping in our bed tonight. Good. Because I didn't know if I could ever sleep beside her again. Morning came slow and heavy. I opened my eyes, forgetting for a split second what had happened. For one small, cruel moment, everything was normal. Until it wasn't. Until the memory slammed into me with the force of a wrecking ball. I turned to her side of the bed. Empty. Cold sheets. I sat up, my body aching with a pain that wasn't physical. I swung my legs over the side and sat there, staring at the floor, wondering how everything had come to this. Wondering how the person I loved had become a stranger. Wondering how the life I thought I was living had been nothing but a lie. I heard movement in the kitchen. She was awake. For a moment, I thought about locking the bedroom door. About hiding away. But I wasn't a coward. I wasn't going to hide from this. I wasn't going to let her pretend this was just another morning. I stood, each step heavy, my body resisting the motion. I walked down the hall, pausing at the kitchen doorway. She was there, sitting at the table, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee like it was her last anchor to reality. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were swollen. Red. From crying, probably. Good. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she had done. She looked up when I entered, her lips parting like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. I didn't sit. I didn't even move further into the room. I just stood there staring. She swallowed, her throat working like the words were trapped there. "Please," she said softly, her voice shaking. "Please, we need to talk." I almost laughed. Almost. But there was no humor left in me. I said nothing, just waited. She took a deep breath like she was bracing herself for impact. I don't even know where to start," she whispered. I sat down slowly, my hands resting flat on the table. "Then don't," I said, my voice low, sharp. Her brows knitted together, pain flashing in her eyes. "Please, I need to explain," she pleaded. I leaned forward slightly, my voice like a blade. "Explain what? That it was a mistake? That you didn't mean it? That it just happened?" My hands curled into fists on the table, but I kept my voice steady. She flinched like the words struck her. I don't know," she stammered. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I felt like we were drifting apart, like you didn't see me anymore. I was scared." I stared at her, my gaze cold. "So you fixed that by sleeping with someone else?" The question hung in the air, heavy and sharp. She crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I was stupid," she choked out. "I was selfish. I made a terrible choice. But I love you. I love you." The words felt like poison. I shook my head slowly. No. You don't. Because love doesn't do that. Love doesn't destroy. Love doesn't betray. She sobbed harder, her body shaking, her hands trembling as they reached for me, but I pulled back. I couldn't bear her touch. I didn't care about her tears. I didn't care about her regrets. She had made her choice. She had destroyed us. And no matter how many apologies she whispered, no matter how many tears she shed, she couldn't take it back. She couldn't fix what she had broken. And I wasn't sure I wanted her to try. A slow suffocation of silence and avoidance. We moved around the house like strangers, two people trapped in the same space but living in different worlds. She tried in her own way. She cooked meals I didn't eat, left texts I didn't answer, lingered nearby in the evenings as if hoping for conversation. But I wasn't ready to give her that. I wasn't ready to give her anything. The trust between us wasn't just broken, it was obliterated. And with it, every word and gesture from her felt hollow, meaningless. It wasn't just the betrayal of a body, it was the betrayal of everything we had built, everything we had promised each other. She wanted to fix it, to glue the shattered pieces back together. But no matter how strong the glue, the cracks would always be there. 18 night, I slept on the couch. I couldn't bring myself to lie beside her in the bed we once shared. That bed, once a place of comfort, love, and intimacy, now felt like a crime scene. Every time I looked at it, I saw the ghost of betrayal. Every pillow, every blanket carried the weight of what had been lost. The silence was deafening. Some nights I would hear her moving quietly in the hallway, stopping just outside the living room as if deciding whether or not to say something. She never did. And I never invited her in. I wanted distance, space. I needed time to think, though thinking brought no answers, only more pain. One evening, I caught her watching me from the doorway. Her eyes were rimmed with red, her face pale and drawn from lack of sleep. She looked like a shadow of the woman I used to know. "How long are we going to do this?" she asked, her voice barely louder than a whisper. I set my phone down and looked at her, my expression blank. "Until I decide what I want," I said simply. The words hit her like a blow, but she nodded slowly, accepting them. She hesitated for a moment, then asked the question that hung between us like a blade. "Do you think there's a chance for us?" I stared at her, my thoughts tangled, my emotions a mess of hurt and bitterness. But the answer, I realized, was already clear. I didn't want there to be a chance. Even if I stayed, even if I pretended to forgive, it would never be the same. I would never look at her without seeing what she had done. I would never touch her without remembering another man had touched her first. I would never hear her say, "I love you," without wondering if she had whispered those same words to him. That wasn't love. That wasn't a marriage. That was a sentence. And I refused to live like that. I didn't answer her question. I just looked away, and she seemed to understand. She left quietly, retreating to the bedroom while I stayed rooted to the couch, the silence between us louder than any argument. The breaking point came the next day. I took the day off work, not because I wanted to stay home, but because I couldn't keep pretending. I walked the streets for hours, passing busy cafes and crowded parks, seeing people laugh and live, oblivious to the wreckage inside me. I ended up at a place that once meant something, where we had one of our first dates, where we had sat and talked for hours. Back then, I thought she was the one. The person I would spend the rest of my life with. Now, it felt like a graveyard for memories I wanted to forget. I sat on a bench, staring at nothing, feeling the sharp contrast between then and now. Back then, I believed in forever. Now, I wasn't sure I believed in anything. By the time I got home, I had made my decision. She was in the kitchen, cooking. The smell of garlic and tomatoes filled the house, my favorite. It was a pathetic, last-ditch attempt to remind me of what we had. She turned when she heard me come in, her face hopeful. "Hey," she said softly. "I thought maybe we could have dinner. Talk." I didn't hesitate. "I want a divorce." The words cut through the air like a blade. She froze, her lips parting but no sound coming out. The wooden spoon slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the floor. She stared at me, wide-eyed, as if she didn't understand. As if she hadn't seen this coming. "What?" she finally whispered, her voice trembling. I kept my tone steady, calm. "This isn't something we can come back from. You made your choice. And now I'm making mine." She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "No. Please. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can talk, really talk. I'll do anything, just please." She stepped forward, reaching for me, but I took a step back. Her hand dropped, her face crumpling. "Please," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I love you." I stared at her, emotionless. "You should have thought about that before you took off your clothes for someone else." The words shattered her. She collapsed to the floor, sobbing, begging, but I didn't comfort her. I didn't kneel beside her. Because where was her comfort for me when she made the decision that ended us? Where was her thought for me, for our marriage, for our life, when she chose him? She hadn't cared then. So why should I care now? I turned and walked away, leaving her crumpled on the kitchen floor. I shut the bedroom door behind me, shutting out the sound of her crying. For the first time in weeks, I slept in the bed alone. And for the first time in weeks, I felt free. The following days were a blur of legal discussions, paperwork, and awkward, stilted conversations about logistics. She fought at first. She begged, pleaded, promised to spend the rest of her life making it up to me. But I was done. I told her the truth. There was no coming back from this. Trust, once shattered, is impossible to repair. Not really. Not fully. She could spend every day of the rest of her life trying to make it up to me, but none of it would erase the image of what I had seen. None of it would erase the knowledge of what she had done. And I didn't want to pretend it would. I told her I wouldn't be cruel. I wouldn't drag things out. I wouldn't make it ugly. But I was done. She could take what she wanted from the house. Furniture. Pictures. Memories. I didn't care. I didn't want any of it anymore. She moved out first. It was quiet. No final plea. No dramatic goodbye. Just one last, broken look before she closed the door behind her. And then she was gone. I stood there for a long time after, listening to the emptiness of the house. The quiet wasn't painful. It was peaceful. It wasn't the silence of a dying marriage. It was the silence of a wound that had stopped bleeding. The first few nights alone were strange, but not painful. I didn't miss her. I didn't miss the tension, the sadness, the constant reminder of betrayal. I missed who I thought she was. But that person didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. I started taking my life back piece by piece. I went back to the gym, started reconnecting with friends, spent less time inside the house and more time outside. I started to feel human again. The divorce was finalized faster than I expected. No drawn-out battles. No heated arguments. Just signatures on paper that reduced everything we had to legal documents and divided assets. When it was done, I sat in my lawyer's office and stared at the paperwork. I thought I would feel hollow. But all I felt was relief. I walked outside, breathed in the air, and felt lighter. Like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Months passed. I started walking every morning, a small habit that gave me peace. One morning, I stopped by a coffee shop I had never been to. I sat outside, sipping coffee, watching people pass by. Couples laughing. Parents wrangling children. People living. And for the first time in months, I realized I was living too. Not just existing. Not just surviving. Living. She was just a scar now. A mark that would fade with time. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. It wasn't complete, but it was enough. Life after her was both harder and easier than I expected. Harder because the memories didn't vanish overnight. They lingered like shadows in the corners of my mind. The smell of her perfume still lingered in certain rooms. Little things would catch me off guard, a song we once danced to, a street we walked together, a memory that surfaced without warning. And for a split second, it would hit me all over again, that sharp sting of betrayal, the overwhelming ache of loss. But it was easier too. Easier because the constant pain of living in a lie was gone. The silent accusations, the heavy weight of distrust, the suffocating closeness of a relationship already dead, all of it gone. And in its place was space. Peace. Freedom. I threw myself into routines. Mornings became sacred. I woke early, laced up my sneakers, and walked. The first few weeks it felt like escape, like I was walking away from something, trying to put distance between me and the pain. But as the days passed, it became something else. It wasn't about running anymore. It was about finding myself again. About letting the rhythm of my steps, the crisp morning air, and the simplicity of movement remind me that I was still alive. That I could still breathe. Still feel. Still move forward. I started to notice the small things. The golden glow of sunrise slipping through tree branches. The quiet hum of the city as it woke up. The strangers who smiled as they passed by, never knowing they were helping to stitch together the broken pieces of a stranger's life. I found comfort in the ordinary. The world didn't stop just because my heart had broken. And slowly, neither did I. I saw friends I hadn't seen in months. At first, it felt strange. They didn't know the details, only that things had ended. I didn't offer much more. Not because I wanted to protect her, but because saying the words out loud felt like giving them more power than they deserved. Some of them were surprised, some weren't. Most just gave me space, letting me take the lead. I was grateful for that. I didn't want pity. I didn't want advice. I just wanted to exist in a world that didn't define me by my broken marriage. There were moments when I almost reached out to her. Not because I wanted her back, but because I wanted answers. I wanted to ask why. Why did she throw it all away? Why did she betray me? Why wasn't I enough? But I knew it wouldn't change anything. Her reasons wouldn't matter. Nothing could undo what had been done. And nothing she said would give me back what I had lost. Some things are better left unsaid. So I kept my distance. I let silence speak for me. The house, once filled with memories of us, began to feel different. I moved furniture, took down photos, repainted walls. It wasn't about erasing her, it was about reclaiming the space, making it mine again. Each small change was like shedding a layer of grief. I donated things we had bought together, gave away decorations that once meant something. I let go little by little until the house started to feel like home again. Not her home. My home. A place where I could breathe. A place where I could begin again. One evening, I sat on the back porch, watching the sky fade into twilight. The air was cool, carrying the scent of rain. I sipped my drink slowly, letting the silence wrap around me. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel empty. I didn't feel lost. I just felt present, whole, in a way that was quiet and calm. I realized that healing wasn't about big moments. It wasn't about dramatic declarations or grand gestures. It was about the small, ordinary things. The quiet mornings. The peaceful nights. The stillness between thoughts. I met new people, not looking for anything but conversation, connection, humanity. And though I wasn't ready for anything more, I found comfort in knowing that I wasn't invisible. That life didn't end just because a chapter had closed. And maybe somewhere down the line, there would be another chapter. But for now, I was content to just be. Sometimes I wondered if she thought about me. If she missed me. If regret ever gnawed at her. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about her too. Not in the way of longing, but in the way of wondering. Wondering how two people who promised each other everything ended up as nothing. Wondering if there had been a moment, just one, where things could have been saved. But even if there had been, she chose not to fight for it. She chose someone else. And by doing so, she made my choice for me. I thought about that night often. The night I found her. The night everything changed. And every time I did, the memory stung less. It became just that, a memory. Something that happened. Something that shaped me but didn't define me. She had been my past. She wasn't my present. And she sure as hell wasn't my future. One day, I ran into her by accident. It had been months and I wasn't prepared for it. She looked different. Tired. Smaller somehow. Her eyes flicked to me, wide with surprise, and then something else. Guilt? Sadness? Maybe even longing. She opened her mouth, but I shook my head before she could speak. I didn't need words. I didn't need apologies or explanations. I didn't need anything from her anymore. I just walked past her, and it felt like closing a door I hadn't realized was still open, and that was the moment I knew I was free. Really free. Not just from her, but from the weight of betrayal. From the need for answers. From the pain that had lived in my chest for too long. I wasn't carrying it anymore. I wasn't carrying her anymore. I walked home that day with a lighter step. I sat on my porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was streaked with gold and pink like a painting, beautiful and fleeting. And I realized that life is like that too. Moments pass. People pass. Pain passes. And what's left is what you choose to hold on to. I chose peace. I chose freedom. I chose myself. It wasn't the ending I had wanted. But it was the one I needed. And maybe in the end that was enough.